BeastNet is brought to you by James Safety Services and in partnership with Beast OCR. Here we discuss all things OCR and fitness related, running, endurance, conditioning, rucking, and more. Welcome to BeastNet.
Hey everybody out there in BeastNet land, Hammer here. And on this episode of BeastNet, we are talking with Melisa Joyal. All right, so Melissa, let's jump right into it. Just kind of give us a little rundown of who you are and what kind of got you into this.
All right. Well, it is a long story of how I got into it, but so I've been involved in OCR for about 3 years now, and I started with I was a runner, just casually. I did half marathons here or there, and I just kind of ran for fun on the weekends. I was into downhill mountain biking, and I helped with women's bike camps, and I was mostly into that. But then it was 6 years ago, a couple of weeks ago, that I had a major crash while biking, and I fractured my S1. It was basically shattered in my low back and my pelvis, and tore all the cartilage in my hip. But the thing was, they didn't realize how badly I was injured at the time and made me walk out. A couple weeks later, they finally found all the damage. Yeah, so that was interesting. A bit about me is I work in rehabilitation. I've worked in the insurance industry for 15 years now, and I work with people with disabilities, and I help them in their recovery. So I guess I knew what was going on with me, even though the doctors didn't. So I kind of took things easy and finally got the answers I needed. And so it took a long time to recover just because of some of the delays in getting diagnosis. But again, I knew what I was doing, so I was able to help myself get better a little faster. But that being said, the doctor told me I should not run anymore. And at the time, I was only really a casual runner. And so I was like, oh, whatever. And then I started thinking about it. And I was like, well, no, I like running, though. It wasn't something that had mattered to me before. And so I guess I was like, well, I need to run. So I just started running 5Ks or whatever. And then a couple, so it just, I didn't realize it was important to me until I couldn't do it anymore. It's just kind of how things go.
It sounds kind of like one of those. Exactly. It sounds kind of like one of those things where it's like, you didn't really realize how much you needed it until you couldn't have it. Kind of like, my daughter, she's coming up on 3 years old, and, she could care less about, anything really. If she has no interest in it, then fine whatsoever. But the second, you change something up by moving something or taking that away from her, familiar environment, then it's like all of a sudden she's like, no, I need that, and so it's like, I don't know. It's almost instinctive. I think that, we have this innate desire to, I guess, fight for the things that it's more like, kind of like an entitlement thing, I guess. We feel, something as simple as running, you get injured and you're like, no, I'm entitled to that running. I want to run now. I didn't want to do it so much before. But
I kind of thought of it as like a bad breakup, like a boyfriend that I didn't really like. I hated him, but then I didn't have him anymore, so I really wanted him back. That's kind of how I felt about running, really. It's like that boyfriend that you just can't let it go, even though you hate him.
Yeah. I gladly I don't have boy problems. Not yet, anyway. I'm sure that in about let's see, maybe 9 or so years, once my daughter's about 12 or so, hopefully not any earlier than that, she'll be getting interested in boys and whatever she's interested in, and whatever. But yeah.
You're gonna have that. Well, and at the time of my injury, I was dating somebody. Actually, we had just gotten engaged, Yeah, we had just gotten engaged and we're planning our wedding. And so our wedding vows included in bike crashes and in health. So,
that's really cool. Well, you know, I mean, you got to laugh at it, I guess. Embrace
exactly. And I was able to walk down the aisle, which was something that we weren't entirely sure was possible for a bit. So, yeah, it was great. So we had to have the bike crash.
Truly awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
so, that's my wife.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, it's like my wife. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry, there's a delay. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. Yeah, the delay is like, it's super crazy. But no, so it's like, you know, I'm a big music nerd, and at least when it comes to like 80s music and 90s music, and my wife, she really knows that. And so when we got married, she had to include in her vows, she actually had to include "Never Gonna Give You Up" by Rick Astley, and
yes, I love that.
It was
song.
awesome because I totally didn't even expect it, and she got about 2 lines into it, and then I realized what she was saying, and I erupted with, like, you know, super loud laughter. I have this really huge laugh that she absolutely loves, and it was awesome, and you know, and that's actually really cool that, you know, you were able to, you know, take that and actually use it in a positive light. And I really enjoy hearing, you know, that people can overcome, you know, all these different, you know, difficulties or injuries and stuff like that. It really kind of, it's really motivational, especially for me. You know, I tend to be, I tend to get into this like headspace sometimes where I'm just like, oh, you know, I don't really want to do this, and you know, things are uncomfortable, and then you know, there's a lot of times that I do push through, and then there's a lot of times where I find myself almost quitting, and then there's a few times where I actually do just, you know, give up. And you know, it's those times after I kind of get through that I'm like, well, you know, I'm glad I really stuck through that, and you know, it really was worth it. And you know, even something as small as, you know, coming back from an injury and including it in your marriage vows, that's actually, to me, even like I said, something as small as that is really motivational, because it shows that you can kind of like rise above the difficulties and, you know, be a better person and be a better you than you normally expect to be.
Well, and I guess that's been my thing all along, especially through OCR, was I still struggle with it. We always are going to, but I had a problem with quitting or wanting to quit or giving up, or, you know, not really thinking I was trying my hardest, but not really. And that has been a big struggle for me, even coming back from the injury. It took me years. And I mean, I got it, and then I ended up in OCR again. I wanted to run, but the doctor said not running more than 8 kilometers. And one thing about me, and anyone who knows me will know, I can argue about anything. I can find a point and I will stick to it, and I will argue it, even whether or not I actually agree with that side. I can argue anything. I should have been a lawyer. I just didn't want to deal with the school, but I should have been. But so I'm good at finding loopholes. And so the doctor said I should never run more than 8 kilometers. And I had a friend who made me, convinced me to do Motorella a couple of years ago. And to do it, I signed up for Rugged Maniac a bit before that just to try it out, and I loved it. But my thing was, well, okay, I'm not supposed to run more than 8 kilometers, but Motorella is about 10 kilometers. This is an old race that I think it was put on by Tough Mudder, but they haven't done it. I did it it was exactly 3 years ago, 2 weeks ago, that I saw it come up on Facebook. And so that was my first race. But it's like, well, it's 10 kilometers. And my doctor says I can't run more than 8. So, but wait a minute, I'm actually not running more than 1 or 2 kilometers between an obstacle. So technically, I'm not running more than 1 or 2 kilometers at a time. So I am sticking with my doctor's thing, because then I'll be crawling or climbing. I'm not running that straight. And that has been then I did a Spartan. I was like, okay, I'm going to do a sprint because it's short. I was like, well, maybe I should try a super. Oh, but it's over. Wait, no, I'm only running I'm not running more than 1 or 2 kilometers. And I've carried that over to the beast. And now I'm thinking about doing an ultra. But again, I'm not running more than 2 kilometers at a time at the most. I think the most I've ever run between an obstacle is 2.5 or 3 kilometers. So it's, but with that, like I still do struggle. And then it's the, like wanting to quit a lot of the time. I'm on an obstacle and I'll just kind of give up, and that has been a problem for me. So like something will start to hurt, because even though I can do it, I'm recovered, but I still hurt. I still have a disc herniation in my back. My feet are generally numb when I'm running, and I have all that stuff. And it's how do I actually make myself get through? And that's where I'm struggling, actually. And I think everyone does. Like you said, it's that pushing through. You have an injury, you recover, but using that mental toughness. And I don't necessarily always have that.
Yeah. So. And that's something that I struggle with too. And, and it's, this, we talked about earlier, the Seattle Super, that was something that I really struggled with. It wasn't so much necessarily the physical, portions of it for me. It was the temperature, and I had never really experienced anything quite that cold before. And that race really, really pushed me, because mile 4, I was ready to give up, and I know people who've listened to this story before, they're hearing it again. They're probably like, oh God, here it comes again. But, that race probably took the most out of me that I've ever really given to any one race. I just did the Seattle Beast, and I still think the Super was tougher than the Beast. Like the Beast was tough. Like there was a lot of really.
No, it took me longer to do the Super than the Beast. It did. It definitely was tough. My Beast time is faster than my Super time for that course. So, yeah.
And actually, when I look back at it, I think, when I look back at it now, I think my Beast time was actually right around the same time as my Super time, which is just ridiculous to me. And it goes to show that, the temperature plays this huge, huge part in it, for me at least.
So,
I know.
But what got you through it? What was your motivator? You said mile 4 you struggled. So what got you through it? Because that's, again, I'm always looking for more strategies to get through those tough times when you're not really, I have some now, but I'd love to hear yours.
So what really actually got me through that was, I had paced back and forth for about, and honestly, you're going to probably think this is really silly. And for me, I think it is. But I paced back and forth, right around mile 4. It was like an 8-foot, I think it was an 8-foot, wall. That was the obstacle where I had really was like, you know what? I don't know, because I couldn't move my hands. I couldn't feel anything from my elbows down to my fingers, my knees to my toes. I couldn't feel anything. Everything was basically numb. And I'm shaking from, just being so cold. And I think I paced probably a good mile just back and forth. And the volunteer keeps asking me, are you good? Are you okay? And in my head, I was like, I really want to tell this, this volunteer, like, call the cart over here and just wheel me off to the tent so I can get one of those blankets. And in my head, I was like, I'm over halfway done. Like I'm over halfway completed with this race. I'm trying to move to stay warm, and I've put on 1 extra mile just in pacing. And I'm like, if I would have just stayed on course for that mile, I would pretty much almost be done. And I started just kind of like, agonizing in my head. Okay, do I turn around and go back to the volunteer, or do I just turn around, and go back on course? And, I basically I spun circles for, probably a good 25 minutes. And then I'd had enough, and I was like, you know what? I'm headed over to the volunteer. And right when I got to the volunteer, I started to say, hey, call the cart and I'm done. And somebody else came up to the volunteer and was like, I can't continue. I need you to call the cart. And for some reason that clicked with me. And I was like, that was like, they're literally doing what I was just picturing in my head. And I was like, I don't want that to be me. Mm-hmm. And I turned around and I got back on course. And I was like, okay, I'll keep going. I know that Mike's going to catch up to me. Usually I run with, Pretty Mike and his friend, his best friend, Don, who happens to be my brother-in-law.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, if I keep on course, I know they'll catch up. And so I stayed on course and kind of went through the, twists and turns in that big field and around the tree and all that. And, they finally caught up right when I was doing my burpees for Bender. And, cause there was no way I was even attempting, Bender because.
Right. If your muscles are tight, it's hard.
Oh yeah.
If your arms aren't working, getting over that top is really tricky.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to attempt this one. I'll just do the burpees. And so I'm, finishing up. I've got about, I don't know, maybe 10 burpees left. And out of the corner of my eye, I see them approaching Bender. And I'm like, yes, I have company. Cause like you like to run with a team. And I'm not really necessarily a person that likes to run by myself. If I'm running by myself, I like to have music. Well, I didn't bring any music with me because I was expecting to, be with, a big group and all that. And then when I got into the mix of things, I was like, you know what, I'm going to take off on my own for a little bit. And, but once they kind of showed back up and it was me, Mike, Don, and, Nick Thompson was there. And we all just kind of just stepped through it. And that was really what kind of turned me around, was just knowing that they were going to catch up to me because I was moving horribly slow, tortoise pace. And, but I just think it was kind of cool that I waited long enough to see somebody else talk to the volunteer. And that to me just clicked this thing in my head that said, you know what? No, I'm not done with this. I don't care how cold I am. I'm pushing through this. As long as I keep moving, I'll still be good. Cause I have this thing, like I kind of reason with myself. And sometimes it can be bad, but like sometimes I'll reason with myself and I'll be like, you know what, if you quit now, you're still going to hurt. You're still going to be cold or whatever. And if you keep going, you're still going to hurt. You're still going to be cold. So which is it? Do you want to quit and have that regret and be cold or be hurt? Or do you want to keep going and be hurt and still be cold, but know that you're accomplishing something? So that's kind of what turned me around and got me through that.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Like what you hear? Make sure and subscribe and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you're using YouTube, please click the little red subscribe icon, then click the little bell for notifications of future episodes. And if you could, give us a thumbs up.
And we're back.
Okay. For me, it's about the medal. So it's like, if you don't finish, you don't get that medal.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you're very straightforward with it. Oh, it's just about the medal. I don't know.
It's not really, but I mean, honestly, I guess this weekend in Tahoe it was. The medal was amazing, and I needed one.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a hell of an achievement. I mean, there's so much buildup about Tahoe, that it kind of gets into your head. You have all this hype going into Tahoe, and everybody's like, oh man, Tahoe and the elevation and the hills and and then all of a sudden you throw in all that snow and then you're like, oh God. So, but I mean, yeah, that one definitely, I could see that one being about the medal. I think that would probably be the motivator for me. We were actually supposed to be down there for Tahoe, myself and Don, but we had, I had some scheduling conflicts with work. And so I wasn't able to get down there. We weren't able to get down there on the days that we wanted to be. because we were going down for media day as part of like their huge media conference thing that they have on the Thursday prior to the weekend race. And I wasn't able to get the time to go down there on that Thursday and get there in time to actually participate in media day. So Don kind of wanted to do the race as well, and was like, well, if we go down there, we can always just do the race. And it was like, well, our biggest thing was we wanted to go for media day, and I could take these vacation days that I have here and better use them to spend time with my family, and I wouldn't have to have such a hassle with work trying to get these days off. And so the scheduling conflict kind of saved me from having to put myself through all that torment. But there's a part of me that still really wanted to go and participate in Tahoe, but it's there's always
it's a great atmosphere there, but I'm so happy I did it. This was my first year again. I'm sort of new to all this OCR stuff, and I've just sort of, I'm not as big into the media. I don't know who everyone is all the time. I don't, but I do know, the Spartan World Championships are a cool thing to be part of, and I've done OCR WC, I've done the NORAM, did that last summer. I've done all these big races, but like the Spartan World Championships was unique in that it just, I don't know, the atmosphere, the environment was really neat. It is just cool to be part of. And so, if you do next year, I would recommend going, just even if you can't make the media day, just being there. I was there. We arrived Friday night, and I was racing Sunday with the qualifiers. So I spent Saturday just kind of wandering around, looking at the booths, and it was just not a party atmosphere. It was like a world-class event kind of atmosphere, which was really neat. I was on my own. I traveled. I only traveled with my husband, and instead of my usual crew, there's a bunch of us that traveled together. I have who I call my race wife, Genevieve. Hi. And my other training partner, Richard. And like the three of us have traveled all season together. So it was my first time really being without them in quite a while. So that was really weird to me. But I did connect with some of my beats team people, and I met up with Tony, and Candace and I hang out a bit. So, it was cool that way. But just the whole Tahoe thing, even if I wasn't with people I knew, it was just so friendly and just stuff happening all the time. Yeah. And it was really cool.
Yeah.
So, if you do
awesome.
get a chance, I do recommend going.
Yeah, I definitely want to go. I kind of like to do that as well. Like you said, you flew out on Friday and you didn't race until Sunday, and then Saturday you just kind of, browsed around in the shops and whatnot. That's taking it all in is kind of a huge thing for me. Like a lot of the times especially if it's like a local race, Don and I and Mike will usually drive up the morning of and, just get our packets and everything. And then we just kind of mill about, most of the time at the Spartan events and stuff, we usually, not to pat ourselves on the back, but we usually have the biggest team tent. I'm sure you've seen that.
I'm always part of you. I'm there with you guys. I don't know if you've seen, but I'm the fully lime green person. I have the pants and the shirt, all lime green, every race. So I'm there with the biggest tent. And
I'm still fairly new to everyone as far as like the team. I mean, I've been on the team for a while, but I've only really been kind of involved with, this deeply involved with beasts for, I'd say, maybe since April. And so I'm still, I've met some of the, some of the more, some of the people that stand out a little bit more, obviously Adam.
Sure.
And, I've met like Tony and then there's, I actually talked a little bit with Jonathan Butler a couple days ago, and I've seen him in a couple of races, but I've never actually talked to him at the race or at any of the races. Obviously, I hang out with Pretty Mike. Hi, Mike. And so like some of the people that like are on there or that are on the team, I've only really just met within the past couple of months. Lorenzo, a lot of these guys.
Well, I'm the same. I'm new to the whole thing too. I've been part of Beast for a little bit, but then it's only been since April that I've actually really starting, to engage and be part, getting to know Tony and Adam and the main people who are there. But I'm Canadian. We can't go to all the team meetups and events, and I do the virtual stuff, but it's really hard to beat to anything other than the race, especially when I've had a race every weekend since May. So except for I've had maybe 4 weeks off since the middle of May. So it's hard to do anything else.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, believe me, I get it. Juggling work and family and, doing the podcast, and then just trying to find, time within all this to do other things. It's kind of a feat to juggle all this and I get it. Sometimes it's kind of nice, you sit down and you're like, man, I don't have anything planned for this weekend. It's kind of nice. And then I find myself getting a little stir crazy, like, what's going on? What can I do?
I had one weekend off before Tahoe, and I ended up doing a 10K run. And of course I had to roll my ankle. I have my back problems, but I also, because of my injuries, it took years to recover, and I've gotten to a point where my back is a problem, but I can cope. But now I have, at North American Championships last year, I hurt my ankle pretty bad coming off an obstacle. I jumped and landed on a rock funny and still continued with the race. And then I didn't bother treating it for a little bit, and it just became a thing. It took months to recover. And then, of course, once that finally healed, I tore, I can't remember, actually in a 12-hour hurricane heat at hour 5, I tore ligaments in my ankle, but decided to continue, and then decided to run the super. And so that was in August. So yeah, so I've been in physiotherapy for that ankle, and that one's finally healed. And I was just doing a local, just little training run on my own, and went back to roll the other one a week before Tahoe. So I'm almost always injured, but for me, it's pushing through it. That has been my thing. And actually, that's why I do the hurricane heats. Was that mental toughness that we talked about earlier, like pushing through things.
Yeah.
And I've used the hurricane heat is what I've used to get myself. The hurricane is what I've got done to build my mental strength and figure out what I actually can do. And realizing if I can get through 7 hours of a hurricane heat with a torn ligament in my ankle at night in almost freezing, then I can pretty much get through anything.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Do you like challenges that are fun, tough, and might use tacos? Head on over to beastchallenge.com and check out our upcoming events, including Beasts 5K Plus, a combination of race and endurance event, and the Bucket Mile. Keep an eye on the Beasts OCR Facebook group for event gatherings. For more information, head on over to beastchallenge.com and the Beasts OCR Facebook group. You'll be glad you did.
And we're back.
Yeah, see, and I've kind of, and I've mentioned this in other episodes, things like ultras and hurricane heats. I haven't really mentally been able to kind of pull the trigger on a hurricane heat. Like, I really want to do it. There's the desire to do it. It really intrigues me. And, on the outside, the mention of, participating in a hurricane heat excites me. And it's like, I really want to do one of these. There's that mental space in there, though, it's like, okay, pull the trigger on this or not. So.
Well, I did the 4-hour hurricane just to see what I could do. I did the Red Deer one also because Red Deer, Alberta is an excellent Spartan course. It's my favorite course. It's flat, but there are a couple hills, like it's in a valley. So it's mostly flat course with a few stair climbs, which is unusual, and other things. So I knew that it was a course I was comfortable with. So, and that's the course that I qualified for, not for Tahoe, but to get to West Virginia. I didn't end up having to go there, but anyway, I love that course. So I signed up for the 4-hour hurricane, which was a 5-hour hurricane. Somebody was injured near the beginning, which was actually quite hard on us all mentally. She fell off the top of the cargo net and was injured and was taken by Johnny Waite is the guy from the former Canadian Spartan guy. Now it's all bought out by not bought out, but retaken back by Spartan US, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, he took her to the hospital. And so we decided to proceed with the hurricane heat because she wanted us to, she told us to. And so we did, but we were all kind of mentally, wow. And honestly, I feel the Krypteia, I feel took it easy on us. But even if it had been a little bit harder, it's all about the team and getting through it. And nobody would let anyone fail. We were all such varying abilities. There were a couple people in there that we had to run, I think, 1 kilometer at one point as fast as we could, or maybe 2. I think I'd say it was maybe somewhere in between there, but it should have, it would have taken a good runner 5 to 6 minutes, and then a slower runner, 8 or 9 minutes. And we had people in all of that. And it didn't really matter as long as we finished it. The whole thing was getting each other to the end. And so with that, then I feel he kind of took it easy on us a little bit. I hope he doesn't hear me say that. No, I'm going to be punished next one. Oh no. But because of that, though, I decided to try the 12-hour. I wanted to be pushed just a little bit harder. I felt I wasn't really struggling with that 4 hours. So I wanted to see if I could do the longer one. And that it was hard. It was. At one point we had to stand. We were given the task of going through the sprint course and remembering the obstacle order. And we had to know the obstacles in order. That's what they told us our task was. But if people who've done hurricane heats know that often what you're told you're doing isn't what you're actually doing. And so we got halfway through and said, okay, drop your bags, stop. You have buffs on you, use them as a blindfold. I gave you earplugs earlier, put them in. You're going to stand here. You're going to raise your hand when it's been an hour. And we had to stand there blindfolded, earplugged for an hour. So going back to my injuries, I have 2 disc herniations in my back, one of which causes my leg and my feet to go numb, and it can cause shooting nerve pain down my leg. I have a standing tolerance of maybe 10 to 15 minutes. So at one point I sat down. They hadn't actually said we couldn't sit down, so I did. Nope, they came over, pulled me up off the ground, pulled one earplug out and said, don't do that again, or everyone's getting all the burpees. and put the earplug back in, and okay, all right, I am standing here. It was in Calgary in August, which you'd think would be warm. I did not go prepared because I looked at the forecast. It was supposed to be quite nice and warm. I looked, and turned out it was raining. And so again, being Canadian, I know Celsius is about 10 Celsius. So I'm thinking that's in the high 50s, low 60s, maybe somewhere in there. And we're just standing in one spot in that. And I am not really dressed for that. So I just stand there shivering, crying for an hour, thinking about quitting, just wanting to quit the entire time, saying, why am I here? Why am I standing here shivering with my back hurt? I could tell them my back hurts. But then what would that do? That would probably give everyone else burpees. So I stuck it out. And I just stood there as much as it was awful and I was crying, but I did it. And then we continued on with our next task. And it's remembering that is what gets me now. That's what gets me through any race. Is that was probably the hardest and darkest I've ever been. Even though it wasn't to somebody else, that's not a big thing. Standing for an hour, wow, big deal. A lot of people stand for an hour in their jobs. But with my back, I can't do that. And with the cold, it was the cold. That's where it was about it.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it was about the same temperature as that Seattle Super. It's actually, when you look at it, it was probably about the same because it was middle of the night. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, a lot of factors really kind of play into it, and when I think about things like that, there's a lot of factors that play into how you approach certain obstacles. And like you said, it's not really a big deal for some people to stand for an hour, but not everybody's the same. People struggle with different areas. I for one am not big on upper body strength. Lower body strength, oh yeah, I could go all day long, but upper body strength, no. So if we get into an obstacle where, or something like that, where it's like, upper body, yeah, I'm going to need help, getting across this obstacle or getting past it, and to me, I think that's relative when it comes to, like you said, you couldn't stand there for maybe more than 15 minutes before you had to sit down. And I think, a lot of that is relative to one another. You can't necessarily say, oh, it's just standing there for an hour. Like, who can't do that? A lot of factors from, like your past would really play into that as far as like, your injury is concerned. I've got a previous injury, a broken ankle from 2006 that, from time to time that really, especially in the cold, that one really gets to me. So there's a lot of times where I'm like, I really don't want to put even barely any weight on it, just because it aches so much. But, like you said, you get to a point to where mentally you're pushing through this and, like I said, it's going to hurt either way. So, do you just push through it and, feel the accomplishment, and, you get to pat yourself on the back and be proud of it and look back on it and go, okay, hey, I survived that. I can move forward with other things and it's not going to be as tough now.
Exactly. And I spoke to some of my teammates on that, and they, like, for me, the standing I realized some of my back is a psychological thing. It's not entirely, obviously, because it's like, medically verified, it's there, but some of it I can push harder than I think I can. But my teammates during that, some of them, the being blindfolded was the hardest thing for them. The not being able to see for an hour. That was really, some people found that really distressing and disturbing. Not knowing what was going on around them, not knowing what's happening. She couldn't hear or see anything. We knew the other people were around, but we couldn't verify it. Yeah. So, and everybody finds different things difficult. And, earlier that day we had, earlier we had to carry, we had to, through the whole thing, we had our packs with our 20 pounds, women had 20 pounds of weight, men had 30 pounds. We had to, for 6 hours, carry a 40-pound sandbag in addition to that up and down hills. And that was tough, but it's harder for some people than others. And for me, that was tough, but the standing was worse. I'd rather, everybody, it's all perception. And that's what I'm learning, is that anything during a race that you feel you can or can't do, it's about your perception of it. And how do you get yourself through that? How do you push yourself and motivate yourself through that? The same with any injury. Okay, things are really rough now. How do you get yourself through the recovery part? How do you push forward when you really don't have the motivation or something's missing? How do you get forward? And I use that, again, working in rehabilitation. That's something I started using more with my clients. What is going to get them through it? Because everybody is so different in that. For me, it's a memory of, okay, I did this and I can do this again. For them, it's, okay, maybe you haven't done this before, but what is something that was hard for you? What is something that is going to make you want to move forward? And everyone's so different about it.
Yeah. So kind of in talking about that, what were some of the areas in what were some of the things in Tahoe that you kind of how about this? Let me rephrase this. There's two separate questions, I guess, really. What what was your favorite portion of Tahoe? Like, what was your favorite part of the whole experience? And kind of another one was like, what were some of the points in Tahoe where you really had to push yourself and you really had to kind of dig back into that memory bank there and be like, I got to push through this?
There's a lot of that. The first was, so one thing is I've raced a lot this season. So Tahoe was my 5th trifecta, but I haven't for this year, but I haven't just done, I've also done some Tough Mudders. I've done some Mud Hero. I've done Rugged Maniac. I've done a lot of races. So it isn't just the 15 that make my trifecta. It's actually that was my 16th Spartan this season, but I've also done a lot of other ones. So I have pulled on all of those races. So like, okay, at the beginning of Tahoe, we had a climb. We had to go to the top of the mountain. So I remembered that I went to Owl's Head, which is the Montreal trifecta weekend, end of June. It was from June 20th, 29th, 30th. The beast was 7,200 feet of elevation gain. We had 7 peaks to get up. There is never, even everyone complains about Kimberly and those races. This was actually worse. It was about 1,000 feet more, apparently, or maybe not, maybe only 400, but it was more. And the fact that I got through 7,200 feet, I said, okay, I've looked at the course map. They said we only had 4,300 feet. It worked out to around 5,000 feet. But anyway, still less. I was like, okay, I can do this because Owl's Head was worse. So I know I can make it to this peak. I know I can do this. So that was my first one. Okay, I've done this. Even if I'm not in my best shape, back at that point, my ankles were fine. Okay, I hurt my ankle. It's all right. I'm walking uphill. I'm not going to run this. I'm just going to make it and get up there, and I know I can do it. And then the next part that was hard for me was the swim. As for everybody, I'm sure that's a big point of contention right now, is whether or not we should have been allowed to do it, because it was below freezing. It was 28 plus wind chill. And, there's all these arguments going on of whether or not we should have been allowed. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other, but maybe it wasn't the safest thing. But I was like, I was going to go. I'm like, I'm here. I'm not, they had said to us, it's mandatory. If you don't do it, you're disqualified. Afterwards, I heard volunteers were telling people they didn't have to. And other people told me they hadn't done it. Well, I'm running back down, shivering, teeth chattering, barely coherent. They're like, oh, I'm so glad looking at me, they say, I'm so glad I didn't do this. I'm like, great, I'm in that rough shape. but I was like, well, I'm finishing this. If I'm here, I'm already at the top. I was already shivering before I went. I'm like, well, I'm just going to continue shivering. And I was prepared. I had brought a dry shirt in a Ziploc bag. I had a windbreaker. I had some hand and foot warmers, though I learned after they weren't working. But I thought I was prepared. So I said, and another thing about me is I do have a phobia of cold water since I was a child. I was on a swim team when I was a kid, unheated outdoor pool when I was 6, no body fat, a lot of hypothermia. So I've had a phobia ever since then. And so I walk up to it and I'm shivering and I'm crying. I'm actually sobbing. Apparently I was sobbing loudly enough that a volunteer was concerned. So she pulls me over, gives me a hug and says, okay, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of water? Oh no, I'm actually a really strong swimmer. Then why are you crying? You can do this. I'm like, well, I have asthma and every time I get in cold water, my lungs close up and I can't breathe. So, okay. Well, do you have an inhaler? Because, we don't want you to have to go to medical. Do you have anything? I'm like, yes. Like, okay, why don't you take your inhaler now? It'll make you pause, take a deep breath. So I did. I took my inhaler. They're like, okay, you can do this. Just go for it. When you get out, you have stuff. I talked to them about what I had. They said, you can do this. So it was basically a volunteer is the only reason I actually did it.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Does your business need first aid, AED, OSHA, flagging, or other safety training? James Safety Services is your one-stop shop. Find them on Facebook today at James Safety Services WA and ask for a quote on hosting your training needs. And
we're back.
And so I did that. I struggled after. I couldn't breathe at all through. Again, I was right about my asthma, and I just couldn't breathe even a little bit during the thing. And after, my hands stopped working. They were completely numb. My legs, everything was numb. And I had trouble getting dressed. Another racer helped me get my jacket on and pull my shirt down because I couldn't. And so that was about other people were trying to win here, but they still saw I was not really doing great and paused to help me. And that was the next thing that got me through was that atmosphere. This is a world championship. This is the Sunday. You had to qualify to get here. People you're trying to win this. They still took the time to help somebody who was, struggling a bit. And that was really cool to me, even throughout. So after I started running, I'm like, okay, I need to not stay here too long. I couldn't get my jacket zipper, my windbreaker zipper stopped working. Mostly because my hands weren't working. And I was like, I have to get moving though. So I start running with my jacket blowing behind me like a cape. I'm like, hey, I'm Super Mel. And running down the hill. And a couple people stopped me, like they saw like the jacket showing behind me. I'm kind of limping by that point because my back had flared up a bit. My foot was my one leg was completely numb. So I'm trying to run downhill without being able to feel my feet, which I look a little odd. You can imagine somebody just kind of flailing down with a jacket going behind. And the girl said, "Are you sure you're okay?" Like, no, but I'm going to do this. So on I go, and I get down to, I think it was the 7-foot wall. By that point, my teeth are chattering. I'm not super coherent, actually. I couldn't talk by that point. I was shaking uncontrollably, couldn't really talk. My husband had hiked up the hill, just trying to figure out where I was. He had seen from the timing chips where I was. He's a hiker, so it was pretty near the top. He had hiked all the way up, and he was there at the 7-foot wall. Yeah. And he sees me, he's like, what, you okay? And I couldn't really speak. So, we got my jacket working. And so I did get a little help, I guess, because he fixed my zipper. And he's like, okay, go. And he cheers me on. There's a lot of other freezing people coming down. Then there's another girl who appears to be in worse shape than me, like really not coherent. He helps her, starts talking to her, calming her down a bit. After that, I got over the 7-foot wall despite some cramping. Continue on. We get the 8-foot wall. I go. I'm still really not super coherent, but I'm better. But my hands are locked into a fist, and I couldn't open them. So I had to run up to the wall. I was running, holding my hands open, and opened it right before I got to the wall because they would clamp shut, and then used it to grab. When it clamped, they would grab the top. And I was wearing leg mitts. It's not like I was barehanded. I did have leg mitts, but it was so cold out there. They were kind of frozen. And so I grabbed the wall, but I bounced off and then fell off from the top of the 8-foot wall and landed on my back and winded myself. So, and so I always say I run on maple syrup power. Actually, and that is really, I will say maple syrup is what got me through the race. I carry packets of maple syrup on me. And that is honestly what gets me through the race. From around the 7-foot wall, I had a packet of maple syrup, but within about 10 minutes, it kicked in and I was okay again. I run on maple syrup, but sadly, when I fell off the 8-foot wall, I burst one of my packets of maple syrup. So all of my belongings are all sticky. Everything, my whole pack is sticky now.
That's probably the most Canadian thing I've ever heard in my life. This is awesome. Like I'm serious. I've never heard anything more Canadian in my life. I mean, like a couple weeks ago, it was like a week ago, maybe we were running the Tough Mudder with Charity and Ryan. And Ryan goes into this whole like just stereotypical Canadian accent. And that's not even as Canadian as running on maple syrup. Like that's
and I have every race now. It has, and I buy the kind that has a little bit of salt added just for the electrolytes. And since I added maple syrup to my race, I have maple syrup every 45 minutes, sometimes half hour. Again, in Al said the steeper ones, every half hour and a less steep every 45 minutes. You're fine. It has everything you need because it is a natural sugar. So it has everything you need to make it through a race. So that, and I have these Pop Rocks things that are, I can't remember the brand now, Progenics. They're cayenne pepper Pop Rocks. You use those for cramping and maple syrup for energy. So yeah, it's great. But
awesome.
That's how that actually got me through. But so in those dark moments during Tahoe, maple syrup, my husband hiking up, and yeah, that was, and then remembering some of the things I've been through already. That's what got me through it. And I honestly, I probably should have been pulled medically. I wasn't, again, I couldn't really talk. I couldn't stop shaking. I wasn't really making a lot of sense. This is what my husband tells me. I thought I made sense, but apparently I didn't. But that got me through. And I had a couple of wins. I actually had there's a few things I failed during the race that really got to me, that I failed the monkey bars because my hands were too cold. I got to the end and just missed the last two. And I don't know why. I don't miss, that's not something I typically miss. But in this one, I was cold. I've had moments this season that I've made dumb mistakes. But I got Olympus is my favorite obstacle. I love Olympus so much. And they had changed it up, though. They made the background more slippery. So a lot of people were feeling it, but I made it through. So that kind of gave me a motivation. And then the box, a lot of people struggle with that. And at the time that I got to it, everyone was doing burpees. And it took me a lot of tries, and I was cramping. Again, from the cold, it was at the bottom after all of the swim, and my calves were cramping a bit, but I made it up that, and that actually motivated me a lot. It's like finding those small wins. That's another big one is, you're failing things that you really should, like failing monkey bars, failing rig. I do ninja training. I shouldn't fail anything grip, but I still do here and there. It's still not my strong suit, but it gets to me. And so I have to really focus on, but I got through Olympus when a lot of people didn't. I got through the box when a lot of people didn't. There's a lot of things. And the Spartan, the Cargo 2.0, that with the platform, and then the vertical cargo net, the platform, that was near the end. I had no energy left. Normally I can go jump, get my forearms on, and then push up from there using my lats, and then my triceps, like do a push-up basically. But I had nothing left there. And I was like, well, I've seen people try this whole pullover thing. You grab the top and you flip over, get your legs up over. I was like, I might as well try it because I'm not going to get it the way I normally do. There's no way. I tried it and I actually got it. I don't know how.
Oh, wow.
Well, I was a gymnast years and years, like 20 years ago I was a gymnast. Oh, geez, looking back, it's actually more like 25. Wow, I'm old. But but I did it anyway. I pulled on my 25 years ago gymnastics abilities and did the pullover to get onto that platform and made it over. And again, other people kept trying and using their energy, and so it was those little wins. And then but I do struggle with the dumb failures that I have. I do struggle with not letting them get to me. That is something I'm working on too, but I'm drawing on, for this weekend, I'm drawing on, looking at the numbers, it looks about 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 people didn't finish. So I don't know the exact numbers, but that's about where we are. It might be even more people didn't finish, but approximately in my age group, it was 1 in 5 or 6 didn't finish. So,
that's
and
crazy.
I did.
And can you take into consideration that maybe even some of those people are some of the people that didn't have to do the swim,
Yeah.
So then you kind of look at that and you're like, wow, I did the swim and I toughed through it and I still finished. And then there were some people that probably didn't do the swim and didn't finish. So, I mean, that's, like you said, that's a huge push and motivation just in itself too.
Yeah. And actually, I know of people who didn't continue past the double sandbag. Some people didn't finish that. So, I mean, or got disqualified in that or whatever it was. At the top, the mountain was cold at the top. Before the swim, I was already cold because they had closed Ape Hanger and the dunk wall So instead of ape hanger, we had to do a crawl, but it was a crawl through snow. So my legs were already numb and cold. That's why I was shivering going into the swim. And so other people were facing that too. You know, we're all struggling. It was snowing up there. It was snowing on us. So we're all struggling with that cold. So yeah. And for me, it was, okay, I got past the super cold point. To get through it, I kept saying, okay, as soon as I get to the bottom, it'll be warmer at the base. It'll be warmer at the base. And it was. And that pushed me through that. And then once I got past that, I'm like, well, okay, I've made it past the worst. So from now on, no matter what happens, I can finish this. I'm mostly dry now. I'm shivering, but I can talk. I started chatting with people around me to make sure I could still talk. I'm always chatty as it is during a race. I always chat with everyone around me. But you know, when I'm trying to get through something, that is one of my strategies too, is just start talking with anybody I see and get them, you know, find out where they are. It motivates me to help people. And so I know there's all the talk about the Tough Mudder, how it's different. The Tough Mudder community is a team and Spartan's more individual, but even racing age group and individual, because in age group, you do have to compete as an individual. Even in that, there are people around you. I've made friends this season in the various races where our paces are pretty similar. So we end up basically racing together and not physically helping each other, but talking each other through things. So it's not like we're giving each other boosts physically, but we're giving you those emotional boosts. And that's what I see out there. And that's really why I'm in OCR, is that camaraderie, those people. Even when you're racing in an individual sport, you're racing alone. You're not technically racing as a team, but you really are, because everyone's out there for the same purpose and everyone wants to finish, and you want everyone to finish. I mean, while you do in age group, you want to beat people, you want them to all finish so that you can beat more of them. You want them to get through it. You just want to do it before they do.
Exactly. So speaking a little bit about like the community and stuff, that's always a huge thing for us, especially, you know, I'm sure you've heard this on numerous episodes before. We talk about community a lot, and that's the biggest motivator for me, is the community. Like it makes me want to do this so much more than I actually have time for, just because there is so much uplifting amongst each other that, you know, you get this really big positive boost out of it. And it's like you want to keep going with it. No matter how much the race or the circumstances suck during the race, you know, there's always that element of, you know, community around you. And it doesn't matter if you know the person or if you don't know the person, there's going to be somebody that you can talk to, even if it's just something as simple as like talking about tacos. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, the community that you have is awesome.
And that's why that is what I'm pushing for. And in Canada, well, Vancouver, now in the East, they have a bit better community, but Vancouver doesn't as much. And we've kind of lost that a little bit. There used to be a group of us, but everything's kind of drifted apart and kind of faded a little bit. And while a lot of us still, you know, we all see each other at races, and I mean, Charity, Ryan, and Troy are some of my very close friends. You know, we socialize, you know, outside of OCR, where, you know, there was a time in summer that we ate at least 2 meals a week together. But, you know, but I met them just at races. But other than that, it is a little limited right now, and that is something I'm trying to push for, is to get, at least in Vancouver, more of that community back, that sense of belonging to something and being part of something and helping each other. That is really what pushed me into this. I had a lot of friends move away around the same period of time, and I was kind of on my own, and I had gone to a race. I met somebody, a girl from, she was wearing a Canadian Mud Queen shirt, and I said, "Oh, what's that?" And we started talking. I became part of them. That brought me into Van City OCR, which became Grit Farm. And, you know, it was just being part of something and having someone, "Oh, I'm going for a run. Does anybody want to join me?" You know, that feeling is why I got into this. And yeah, I do feel it's lacking a little right now, at least in our region. I know the beasts that's why I've been trying to push a little more, I've been traveling a little more, really, to be around beasts a bit more, because there is that huge sense of community. And I have really connected with a few of the other beasts and become fairly close with a few, just because, it's that attitude, that camaraderie, that help each other out. And even if you're not necessarily running together, you're there to help each other. And, actually it was the coolest feeling in Whistler. I was running, it was my first race as an elite. I just wanted to see how I do. Didn't do awesome, but I wasn't last. But quite often, I think it was about 6 times during the sprint alone, I had someone yell out, "Go Beast!" And, and I was wearing my jersey that said Mel, I have my Beast jersey, and I was wearing my Beast jersey and my Beast pants, I think. And I have in my jersey just says Mel, or Mel Joyal on it. And I heard, "Go Beast Mel." And I'm like, yes, that's what I yell. I always, I'll yell out when it's something that's really hard. I'm like, okay, I got to go into Beast Mel mode. And so I'm like, "Go Beast Mel." And people were yelling that on the race. So, it was being recognized as a beast. And just honestly, that really helped push me. I ran just a little faster when someone's like, "Yeah, beast." And yeah, it's that little push, that just being part of that recognition of that you're part of a team, that you're part of a group, really actually was huge for me. And I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I think that's hands down probably the biggest thing I love about being in these, just doing these races. For me, I think races are secondary to the community, I think, in importance. Sure, I like doing the races, but I really enjoy getting to meet newer people and, meeting, some of the people that I, potentially interview or even just get to talk to on a normal, face-to-face basis. Those are all things that I'm really excited about. And I think the race just kind of takes a back seat to that. So.
I completely agree. It's that community. And so I am hoping I have been trying to get other people to join Beast, like people in Vancouver, getting them to try. I've been pushing people to try OCR. I do train at a ninja facility, and I have got a number of the people there out for races to try it out. And they're not, some of them struggled. They do the ninja thing, but getting out in the cold and running isn't quite the same as being in a controlled, which is why I still struggle with the grip obstacles, is that it's in a controlled indoor environment. I can do a lot of different grip things, but once you get out, and they found that too. But I'm slowly getting them into the OCR community and trying to get other just random people I meet, people out running, people out. Actually, there's a guy that I met at a brewery. My friends own a brewery in Port Coquitlam, which is where I live. And he did Seattle and Whistler Spartan races. And, we've now started doing a couple of runs where he and I are working together to bring more people in to try Spartans and to train. I actually have an Olympus wall, a 6 to 8 foot wall, a tire flip, and a spear throw in my backyard that my husband built for me. And so I was like, well, come over, try Olympus, try a wall. And I'm getting people to try it out. And I'm hoping, that they'll come and they'll join Beast. They'll be part of the group. I'm trying to get more Canadians involved in this. Get them, it's a U.S. thing, but Canadians will take over. We will. We run on Maple Syrup Network, so.
Yeah, I actually ran into a guy that had come down from Vancouver for the Seattle Beast, and I can't remember his last name to save my life, but his first name was John. And I was talking with John after the race. I just sat down to have some barbecue because I was just spent at that point. And I was like, look, I got to have something to eat. So I sat down by myself, and this guy comes up and he says, hey, do you mind if I sit here with you? And I said, I don't care. Sure, go ahead. And we started talking and found out that he was from Vancouver and that he had done quite a few races before. His son had got him into it. But he was just kind of doing it by himself at this point. And he absolutely loved it. And, you know, I introduced him, not really necessarily to the team, because a lot of the team had already, like most of them had kind of taken off after the race because they finished way earlier than I did. And then you've got some of the ones that had been preparing for the hurricane heat that night. So they were off kind of doing their own thing. And so I told them a little bit about the beast, and I said, yeah, you know, if you're interested in all this, then, you know, it'd be great, you know, if you wanted to join the team or whatever. And you know, that would be really cool, you know, just trying to kind of extend, you know, a warm welcome, you know, from our group to just people that don't know about OCR in general. You know, and he had kind of known about OCR a little bit prior to his son getting him into races. And, but then he just decided, you know what, I like doing this by myself. I mean, even just by myself, it didn't have to be exclusively by himself, but he really enjoyed it so much that he was doing it kind of on his own. And so I was like, you know, that's great. You know, we've got, if you really want to meet other people, you know, you don't have to, but if you want to, like, even just check us out on Facebook, or, you know, any of your other, like, if, you know, check out the website or our podcast or whatever. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. I love it. And, you know, and I'm like, great, you know, that's even more. So I feel like I've contributed just a tiny bit to the Canadian invasion.
Yeah, well, exactly. We're hoping to get more. And I mean, my buddy Troy, he's a really close friend of Charity and Ryan, Troy Geisrecht. His whole thing is believe better is possible. And he can't always run the races, but because of his own health concerns, but he's always out there promoting it, and especially in like Whistler. He was out there in Whistler, you know, trying to get people to join and become part of Beasts, and you know, just trying to get people out there and basically expand our community, help Vancouver and Canada take over, or at least be a large part of it. So, and that he's always been an inspiration to me too, but and especially in that he believes so much in this and wants to even just if he can get one person into a race, like to try a race out, he'll reach his goal. You know, exactly. It just takes one person or a few of us. We just, you know, I tell somebody, they tell somebody, we're going to keep expanding. It's that web effect. And seeing somebody like Troy, who does have a number of health concerns, if he tells people that, well, I do this, so why don't you try it? It may take me 8 hours to complete Spartan Beast, but I'm going to complete it. It may take me 5 hours to do the Tough Mudder, but I'm going to do the Tough Mudder. Doesn't matter how long it takes me. I'm going to do it. And that is what's getting people out there too. It's that saying, well, if I can do it, you can.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and, you know, that's a lot of it. I've talked to a lot of people that I work with that are like, you know, I don't, excuse me. You know, they're like, I don't know how you get out and do that all the time. Like, it just looks so grueling. And I'm like, honestly, it's not as bad as it looks. Like it just looks horrible, but it's so much fun.
But it's fun.
You know,
it's fun.
Exactly. And I think, you know, I've managed to get a couple of people interested in it. I was just approached by one of my other coworkers. I never even would have thought that she would be interested in, you know, any type of OCR event. And when she saw pictures from this past Tough Mudder, where Don and I and Mike ran with Charity and Ryan and Nick, she was like, you know what? I want to do one. Like, I've been thinking about it for a while, and then I just really want to do one. And, you know, maybe, you know, the next time you guys get together and do like a short one or just like a mid-sized one, you know, I would really like to go. And I'm like, you got it. Let's do it, you know? And so even just talking with people around work about it, it's gotten a couple of people interested in it. So I really like, you know, being able to introduce it to other people. And like I said, you know, if I can do it, you know, especially if you've got some sort of, if you're struggling with something and you don't think that you can do it and you still do it, that's motivation for other people. And, I tell people all the time, if I can do it, trust me, you can do it. And, and it seems to work.
Well, exactly. I mean, and I guess for me, I try to get people to understand that they can do it, but I'm not the best person. I mean, yeah, I've come back from a lot of injuries, but I have always been sort of sporty. I was a gymnast. I coached gymnastics. I mean, my name is Melissa. I go by Mel, and my last name used to start with a C. So I was Mel C. My nickname was always Sporty Spice. So
Sporty Spice.
I'm not the best, to say that, you could be completely unathletic and do this. But I went from, barely able to walk to being able to run a kilometer to being able to run 5 and then to doing this. It wasn't an instant thing, but I could have, but I'm looking back, no matter where I was, you can try a sprint or try the Tough Mudder 5K, try a Rugged Maniac, I've done Mud Hero. I made my friend try that for the first time. You can walk through it. Even if you're struggling, do it with a friend, do it in open, get help. You can push through it no matter where you are. Yeah. And that's the message I try to get out to people. And that in the teamwork, a lot of us deal with mental health challenges. And so that's another big thing I deal with my clients. And, and I deal with anxiety myself. And that exercise and getting out and having a purpose is big in that. It's huge. You need a purpose, you need a goal, and getting out for a race is a great one.
Yeah, it's definitely a therapeutic thing to do.
So, yeah.
So cool. Well, before we conclude, is there any shout outs or any promotions you wanna yell out there?
I guess Momentum Ninja, my people getting me doing rigs, and to Troy for being a huge motivator and being that, believe better is possible, because I do, and largely because of him. And I guess that's really into my, I find everyone so supportive around me. So I always want to thank everyone, all of my friends and family around me, for helping me get to Tahoe. Like, qualifying for Tahoe was hard, and it was a lot on me and my family and my, for me being away for the races and pushing so hard and training so hard this season to get there. It has been my goal. And so my family's helped me really get to that. My mom has flown to races to meet up with me to be my pit crew. And, in one race, a Canadian championship race, it was that owls had beasts that was awful. At any of the points coming down the hill, she had gathered, right before I had to go back up, she gathered everyone she could find around her and got them to chant my name. Now, there's little things like that have been really helpful. So I do want to thank my mom for that. So, yeah. And my husband for hiking up Tahoe.
And fixing the zipper.
Exactly. Without that, I actually probably would have been taken out. So, yeah. Cool.
Well, Melissa, Mel or Mel C, Sporty Spice, whichever one you want to go by. It has definitely been a pleasure. Thank you for being on this episode of BeastNet. I look forward to actually meeting in real life at one of these races. It'll probably end up being next year.
Always
I think
there.
my race calendar is pretty much done. So, well, at least my race calendar is pretty much done for this year. So, well, I've got a lot of things going on. I'm trying to find a new job. I kind of want a job change. And then my wife is actually pregnant with our second child, so I'm kind of taking some time off of that. So, well, thank you very much. Yeah. So yeah, it's just taking time for family and whatnot, and really just kind of focusing on the more important things for now. And then once I get get a new schedule figured out, then I'll be right back into the racing. And then, it's obviously not going to stop me from getting out and volunteering. So I'll be volunteering at races as well. I might not actually be racing some of them, but volunteering is always fun. So.
Yeah, well, hopefully I do see you out there. I have one more trifecta left. I mean, I'm only have 3 more races, maybe 4, versus, I had, in September, I did 8. At one point I did 7 races in 16 days. So, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore this month. So I only have 3 left. I only have 1 trifecta left this year. So.
Well,
yeah.
Awesome.
I'm technically on vacation.
Well, enjoy your vacation while it lasts. And then, good luck on your future races. I will definitely be watching from Facebook and all the posts and all that kind of stuff through Beast OCR. Have fun with it. And, we'll hopefully get to meet one of these days in real life. And, until then, like I said, thanks again. It was a pleasure. And have a great night.
Thanks for having me. It's been great. You too. All right. Good night.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook. Like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. This show is brought to you by James Safety Services in partnership with Beast OCR. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you like to hear. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or at beastocr.com.